Hello and welcome to another virtual assembly. This is, very strange year, isn't it? But I want to share with you something that I think is really important and that gives us hope that our world is actually okay and that there are lots of good things happening in our world. Earlier, I made one of these, a Christingle. Some of you may have made one or might be going to a service to actually make one. And these are a symbol that we have in the Christian faith to remind us of a few things at this time of year around Christmas and Advent about how much God cares about us and how much God loves us. And what we have is we have an orange in the middle here that represents the world, God's good creation, the good things that God made, because after all, an orange is rather nice. We then have the red ribbon that goes around our orange, and this represents the love of Jesus. Now, the reason it's red is, and some of you know this, is because actually Jesus didn't stay a baby, did he? He grew up to be a man, and then the Bible tells us that he actually died to save us, that we needed God's love to act in that way so that we would be saved and rescued by him. And so the red ribbon represents not only the love of Jesus, but the fact that he gave his life for us. The candle in the middle here represents Jesus being the light of the world. He was born at Christmas, but he is the light of the world and he brings light into dark places. He brings hope in those ways. And then we have 4 cocktail sticks. Now, some people think the 4 cocktail sticks represent the 4 different seasons to remind us that God is in the world all the time, not just at Christmas, but actually all year round. God is there. And then we have, on mine, I've got dried fruit. You might have sweets or other nice things on there to remind you of all the good things that God has given us in the world, all the good things that there are in the world. And we often have these and like these at Christmas time. And in the Bible, it talks about how there is a light shining in the darkness and the darkness cannot overcome it, in John chapter 1, right at the beginning. This year, 2020, coronavirus threatened our world. And for many countries, there was a sense of darkness and people were made to stay in their homes. We had to do that, didn't we? Remember that first lockdown when schools were closed, or at least for most people they were, but some people still had to go in. Do you remember what it was like to be at home, away from your friends, not being able to go to school? Do you remember that feeling of having to avoid people to make sure you kept your distance? You might even still have to be doing some of that at the moment. What sort of things did you use to keep safe? Some of the things I had was hand sanitizer and face masks. I've got lots of these that I wash each day after I've used them to keep me and other people safe. And we also had to keep our distance, don't we? And we still have to keep our distance from people. This is a meter ruler. It goes all the way along. It doesn't even fit on my camera. This is just 1 meter. And then you go all the way back again to get 2 meters. When we had to isolate, when the virus started, when the lockdown then got lifted again, we found out what it was like to meet people again and make contact with people. But some people have been cut off and felt isolated and frightened all this time, and it's not been easy for people. I was wondering, what ways did you communicate during that first lockdown with your friends and with your family? Perhaps you can talk about that in your lesson later on. Maybe you had Zoom catch-ups with your family, or you used a mobile phone to phone them, or FaceTime them, or Instagram, or whatever it was, pen and paper. You might have even written cards and letters to people. We find ways to connect with people because that's what we're made to do. And even though we were isolated and cut off from people, we shone a light in that darkness, in that separation, by communicating, making sure that people knew that we still cared about them. Quite often at the start of lockdown, people were lighting candles in their window, not these sort, but other candles, and putting lights up to celebrate the acts of kindness that were being done. We went out on our doorsteps and clapped the NHS to say thank you. There were lots of acts of kindness that were done to make that lockdown and that isolation not feel so bad. And at Christmas, we remind ourselves that Jesus came into the world as a light to shine in the darkness, to show us that we are loved and cared for by God, that we matter to God. And we are all encouraged to do exactly the same, to shine a light, to show other people that we care, and to bring hope to their lives. And perhaps you can this Christmas time think about ways that you can be light to the world. Maybe make one of these and light it. And think, what can I do to give somebody a little bit of encouragement? Who could I talk to? Who could I send a letter to? Who could I just give a call to? Something like that. How are you going to shine your light this Christmas so that people know that the world is not as bad as it seems and that they are loved and cared for? Let me just pray. Dear God, thank you that you came into this world at Christmas as a baby to show us that you loved us and that you cared for us. You shone a light into a dark world 2,000 years ago, and again you encourage us to shine our lights in this world so that it doesn't seem quite so dark for so many people. Help us to be light in the darkness of this season and to bring hope to those that perhaps have lost sight of it at Christmas. Amen. See you again soon.